Welcome to Catalyst for Healing. I am here today with Lisa Stockdale, a very good friend of mine and my office mate. And is a licensed psychologist. She has been practicing as a therapist since 2012. She does wonderful work with both couples and individuals. And she did her dissertation on attachment and intimacy. So she is here today to talk about attachment. What is your style of attachment? She's going to share a little bit about how to repair attachment if you aren't securely attached. And she's going to give us some tips about how to find a therapist that you can repair attachment with, the best ways to do that. So welcome, Lisa. We're excited to have you on the podcast.
Thank you.
So why don't you share with the audience? She also does ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. Mm-hmm. And so Lisa has worked with clients also from Renew Ketamine Clinic. And but why don't you share a little bit more about your background and just your excitement to share this topic with us?
Thanks for having me. I feel like I have been in love with attachment ever since I heard about it, because it really helped me understand myself, actually. So many years ago, in my 20s, I sought my own therapy and was so helped by it that I thought, if I could only help even just one person, I would love to do this. So in the process of studying, they want you to figure out quickly how you think about helping people, and attachment was such a good fit for me. So so that's where it all started, and the way that it has fit me has been in my relationships, so romantic relationships and otherwise. So yeah, it's
friendships.
Yes, and friendships.
We're securely attached. Right.
Yes.
And she and I align with that. I have very much an attachment basis to my work and have always loved attachment theory. And I think it's very critical to understanding your attachment style in order to bring change. So why don't we start there? Could you share a little bit about the different attachment styles so people can maybe identify, if they've never heard this concept before, like what attachment style they are, and we can go into detail about what might be helpful to repair it if they're not securely attached, is kind of the gold. I think I heard Oprah say it's kind of the people that have secure attachment, it's kind of like the people that were raised with wealth, have the benefit of like making more money because of their connections, or their lives end up being easier in certain ways. Like they have more support. They have more support. Yeah. So she was comparing it to those people that they got the emotional gold,
Yeah.
if they have that, because their lives are going to be functioning better. So,
and like a lot of therapists, we get into it to figure ourselves out. And that's kind of what happened in my case. I didn't like how in romantic relationships, how I would fall in love, and then I would start feeling desperate if the partner didn't want to be in the relationship, or if we got in a big fight. And I just didn't like that desperation feeling, and very needy, like more than just, oh, don't go, but like, I'm going to die if you leave. So attachment helped me figure out where that was kind of coming from. First off, I mean, you should know that 67% of the population are securely attached. So there's a big...
Is that worldwide?
I don't remember.
Okay. I'd be curious. No, just because it actually sounds high to me in the US. That's why I'm curious. But anyway, we'll fact check that later.
It's very consistent. And so 33% are insecurely attached. And that has multiple categories. So it's anywhere from preoccupied attachment to avoidant to, there's another one, fearful avoidant. So as you can tell, I'm a little there's lots of different ways to explain this. It's been studied for adults since the 80s and for children since the 70s. So lots of people have put out their way of looking at it. This one in particular that I'm going to share today is easier, I think, to understand when you haven't studied it. It's the way you can figure it out or figure out your style is that it's in a quadrant. So there's 4 different categories, and the x-axis stands for anxious, and the y represents avoidant. And so in the securely attached quadrant, you're low anxious, low avoidant, and so you're secure. The other ones represent the ones that have more trouble with relationships, like being highly anxious and not avoidant. That would be the anxious preoccupied. And then high avoidance and low anxious would be dismissive avoidant. And then both of them, high avoidant and high anxious, would be fearfully avoidant. And so
they also call it disorganized.
Yeah, disorganized would be, there's lots of different ones. I tend to quickly just call, preoccupied or avoidant is a quicker way of doing it. There's a much smaller percentage that are fearfully avoidant or disorganized, and that's mainly because the signals were so mixed and they didn't have anything consistent.
Yeah.
The response from the caregiver was so inconsistent. So
the research in this starts with Bowlby
right
studying what age, because I thought this was
I think they were 1.5 and toddlers and their mothers. Okay. And it was called The Strange Situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so then they had them all in a room and the mothers all left. And then they watched how the children responded when they left, but also when they came back. So how, do they cry the whole time and then cling to the mom when they come back? Or the fearfully avoidant will act like they don't even know the mother when she comes back. They'll ignore her, and it's just kind of sad to watch.
Yeah. The secure would be showing some sign of like excitement to see mom again. Yeah.
And like
that would be normal and healthy.
Mm-hmm.
How does the not disorganized, the avoidant look with an adult? Because you kind of described the insecure might be someone who's like very fearful of losing that connection. So they might appear like needier, needing a lot of reassurance. What would the avoidant look like?
Oftentimes, there's some that will look avoidant, like they don't want anything to do with relationships, but those are the easy ones. A big portion of the avoidance will look to be secure. So they'll say the right things and seem like they don't need, desperately need anyone, that they can make decisions, but they can also connect. And so with the avoidant, the way that we sort of determine the avoidance or tell the difference between the avoidance and the secure people is we put the avoidant people under a cognitive load, like a math problem, having them get kind of involved up in their head about something, and then have them answer the questions, and they will turn out to be avoidant and not secure. So under that load, they're not able to.
Do you run that test in your office? Or you just pick
when
it up?
we did research.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because we needed the avoidance. We needed them to show up, and they will answer questions as though they're fine and they don't need anyone.
Yeah.
They have good relationships and everything's. So right. It's a little hard to detect.
That's interesting. Okay. What do you notice? Yeah, because Lisa works both with couples and individuals. So is there a situation where someone with a secure attachment would choose an insecure or avoidant attached, or no? Do most secure people end up finding other secure people, or what? Because I know there's a big probability of an insecure kind of connecting with an avoidant.
Right.
um,
Yeah, I think I don't I don't really, to be honest, I don't know the research on what secure people, what they find attractive. Obviously, they would find secure attached people attractive, but I think it's really hard to tell. There's a lot of scenarios. I mean, if someone is in the field of psychology, being a therapist, and they're working on themselves, and the secure person knows that and is continually seeing them grow and become more and more secure, they may think that doesn't scare me off at all. I mean, heck, my mom was insecurely attached, and or they know someone and it doesn't scare them. That's the other thing about secures is that they
don't feel scared.
They don't get scared off. They think,
okay,
come over here, come here, I'll hold you, you're fine.
Right.
And they're just stable, just stable.
Yeah. So speaking of that, underneath, we were talking the other day about how underneath the insecure avoidant is trauma.
Yes.
And so, whereas before doing therapy and trying to repair someone with an attachment that's not secure or avoidant can take a very, very long time because they need that consistency of the soothing and that person, feeding back to them, the rupture repair. Because of these new trauma modalities, and you've been trained in EMDR, we both work with ketamine assisted psychotherapy. You and I are noticing that, wow, when we get to be able to resolve the trauma more quickly, the attachment gets repaired more quickly.
Yes.
So can you explain that of what is the connection there?
It's, it is trauma, but I also think of like childhood abuse and neglect. And that obviously is traumatic. But the reason I say it that way is because a lot of people don't remember a certain instance.
Sure.
They just remember constantly having to feed themselves and their younger siblings, and they didn't know where the food was going to come from or whatever. So that type of trauma and getting in there and actually having that part healed by shifting in perspective, like how they see themselves and other people, just like we were talking about in the quadrant example of figuring out your style. Your anxiety in relationships goes down when you trust yourself and other people more.
Right.
And so, I've worked for years and years and years with the same people, and EMDR and ketamine assisted therapy has really been a game changer because right in front of my eyes in real time, I'm watching their mind shift and see themselves differently and see their abuse as separate of them and not their fault.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, for example, like with the EMDR, I think this is a really good example. We were practicing it, and I was with my partner. I told him how my mom would slap my face and when she was upset. And just in that moment, I realized I could see myself as a child. And when it was time to see what I was singing about, I said, I was a child. I was innocent.
Yeah.
I didn't deserve to be hit. It was like the first time I had really, obviously I've heard that every time I say it to anyone, they tell me, well, you didn't deserve, but it wasn't the same as realizing, oh my gosh. And then now, I mean, you can just see how that plays out. Like now, it's a touchstone in my mind. Like,
Yeah.
I don't deserve that. I don't deserve to be talked to that way.
Right.
You know? And so it just has a very huge domino effect in your healing to have something transformative that claims to heal, like EMDR and ketamine, where you're able to sort of almost disconnect from your old ways of thinking and
Yeah.
have a different perspective.
And that's going to allow like healthier attachments, because let's say when it's clear they didn't deserve that kind of treatment, they're
Yeah.
going to stop choosing people that treat them in a similar way, because our brains, I mean, we're all drawn to the familiar.
Yes.
And unfortunately, until you're conscious of what that familiar is and whether it's good or not,
Yes.
you're not going to be able to change that to find people that are actually good for you.
Right.
Now, I know you work with couples, so tell me about how do you work with couples? Let's say they're both maybe insecure and avoidant, which is the most common pairing, to help them repair that secure attachment with each other. Like, what are some ways that you're able to do that in couples therapy?
Well, what I love about couples therapy is you're kind of doing therapy with each person, back and forth, and so that each person is seeing and hearing the responses of the other person healing and growing. And so it's this constant massage of the two sides. But then when you have them start actually trying to change how they treat each other, you have them talk to each other in front of you, and you can really jump in as sort of a coach and say, you're not, Joe, I notice you're not looking at her. You're just looking down, and he doesn't know that making eye contact is the most fast, effective way to connect.
Yeah.
On an emotional level. But he has learned over time, for whatever reason, that's too intimidating, too vulnerable, whatever. And so, yeah, just giving them the skills live and in the moment of like, reach out, touch your hand. Whatever would feel normal and healthy and secure, I coach them. I say, wouldn't it be nice to just touch her? And then they hold hands, or then they look at each other, and then it starts happening right in front of you without you even telling them to. Like, if it's a really good session and I get them to talk, they'll just spontaneously stand up and hug each other, and I sometimes want to leave the room.
Yeah.
It's like, awesome. Wow, this is. But sharing feelings and making eye contact and saying things in a careful way that person can hear, and not just being raw because you're mad and this is the way you're going to hear it because this is the way I'm going to tell it. Yeah. Instead, just being careful and coaching them how to say things.
At what point do you notice that the couples therapy isn't working and they need to do more individual work? Because we've had this happen with, sometimes you'll send individuals to me where you're working with the couple, but when do you kind of feel like we're not getting anywhere with the couples work until they do their individual work?
Sometimes one, or sometimes it's both. Their particular personal issues, and I think it's because we do a lot of individual therapy and we can recognize it as something separate of the relationship. We just say, you know what, we're going to push pause. You do need couples therapy, but right now the individual work that you need to do is sort of hijacking the couples work. And so it's kind of when you see nothing's really taking, like you're not getting traction anywhere.
Yeah.
And they keep wanting to fight right in front of you and say the same things that are hurtful. And
a lot of times what we call it projection, but let's say, if I have a history of someone ignoring me, triggering my abandonment wounds. You could do the slightest thing and I could erupt. And you know, there's no way to kind of soothe that until I learned how to soothe myself.
That's a great example.
So that might be where it's like, okay, if they're projecting a lot on the other person and the couple's work isn't helping because they're too reactive.
Yeah, too reactive.
Then maybe it's time to do the individual where they can start to, it's like the more people can heal their own wounds themselves, the more they can then actually see the person as they really are.
Yes.
And actually provide mutual support for the relationship, not just for getting your needs met. So,
and the easier ones, you start out by always with couples asking how they met and what they loved about each other. And you can always tell when they're talking if they can barely remember or they look down and look bored. It's going to be a hard road. It's but if they are telling the story and they start to smile or blush or look over and hold hands or whatever, reason I bring that up is because that shows that they still remember who the person really is.
Yeah.
But when they've been in like 20 years of the trenches with this person and fighting and it's so like the air gets sucked out of the office when they walk in, that's when they need to be working separately.
Yeah.
Because they have forgotten who the person is.
Well, in Gottman's research, what does he call it? Like
our startup?
No, where he actually observed couples, and if there was it rage, he called it? There was some indicator to him.
It's contempt.
Contempt, that was the word.
It's the fastest of the four horsemen, he calls it.
Yes.
That dissolves marriages.
Yeah.
He could predict up to 96% of the time if the marriage would divorce.
Yeah. Because once it's in the contempt mode, it's really hard to repair.
Contempt is when you kind of snarl your lip or you roll your eyes at somebody or call them names, their person names. That's the most corrosive.
Yeah. So what, I guess I'm trying to think of what other things we were going to go over. What about somebody who is noticing, they want to develop a more secure attachment. And so they want to find a therapist that can help them with that. How would you recommend they go about that?
I would look for therapists that have something about attachment in their bio or their description of their work. A lot of them will have their approach written there. If you bring it up to them, it's become so popular. I was just telling Maria that if you bring it up to them, of course they're going to say, oh yes, I do attachment, which is okay, but it's not somebody that really is like we are. Like, I'll never forget
it's the framework we look through.
When we both figured out we were attachment, it was like we found our family.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you want to always talk to the therapist. I know it's very popular these days to text and email and send a message so that you don't have to talk to anybody, but a lot happens in that first call.
Yeah.
You can just hear and feel. I know it sounds very woo to say that you feel somebody, but you can. Just in that quick interaction of what are you coming to therapy for, you can get rubbed the wrong way and you just move on. You just call the next number.
Yeah.
Because
I always tell people, like, the fit is so important.
Yes.
So don't take that lightly. Like, don't just pick a person off the street and go with it. You want to, Psychology Today is the best place to find a therapist. You could put in your zip code, your insurance, specialties, and then they give you those people in the area. But you always want to talk to 2 to 3 people and get a sense of their style, of how you feel. Really, it's how do you feel in their presence?
Yes.
do they make you feel comfortable? Do you feel like you can open up, that you can be vulnerable? Do you feel like they can help you?
Right.
But that decision is, I mean, it shows, the research shows the greatest success is the fit.
Yes, for sure.
And what that really means is the secure attachment.
Mm-hmm.
And our goal, is, I mean, the beauty of our work is it's definitely a deeper level and it takes more time. But like you said, with the trauma modalities, it speeds it up. But it's so wonderful to see people choosing secure attachments outside of therapy. That's when we've done our job well.
Yes. Yes.
It's like the people that come in and have no friends,
Right.
By the end have a total
Yes.
support system of people that love and care for them because they experienced with us what it's like to be supported in a healthy way.
Yeah.
So they have a new blueprint. You talked about
Right.
that a little bit.
Yeah.
Can you explain that?
Yeah. Just it's just a beautiful thing that happens with the caregiver and their infant. It all starts there, and that was Bulby. But that all of that cooing, the mirroring with your baby, it's usually who feeds them. That relationship gets internalized, and we call it a working model. And we basically, it's a blueprint that we go into every relationship. It doesn't matter, romantic, friend, whatever. We have a blueprint of what we expect and who we will be in that relationship until our experiences start to change that.
Yeah.
And so getting to be, I think I'm more healthy as a therapist than I am in my actual life because it's not about us and we are responding in the optimal way.
Right.
And so, yeah, even though we may have our picadillos in the therapy, we're giving them the tools and being the responsive, reparative relationship that they've always needed. So it's kind of like a little microcosm of that beautiful, like bonding ability because you have a trained person that really knows how to do it, and really does care about you.
Right.
And so you learn there. And I remember just learning from my therapist, like I would say something that I thought was just normal that somebody said or did. And just the tweak of her face, I would be like, what happened? That wasn't good? And she's like, what do you think? And then I'd have to think about it. And then I'd walk away thinking, and she, just the most gentle, like, because she actually cared more than I cared about how I was being treated.
Yeah.
And she knew more.
Yeah.
And so when you think about it, it's like our parents, it's like a mentor, it's like anybody that comes alongside and loves you and like looks out for your best and your well-being. And then you take that with you, and next time somebody does that, you're just like, oh, I don't like that. And you remember her face. I didn't like
I love that.
I didn't like that he treated you that way.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like, you have value. It just gives me the chills. So therapy is, there's a whole area of research on this, how therapists are our surrogate attachment figure. Yeah. Our caregivers. And so it's a wonderful thing that we get to do.
Yeah.
Especially those of us that, have fought for our security in attachment. So.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to add to the subject, or did we miss anything?
When you study something as much as I have attachment, I could talk for hours about it, but I just encourage you, listeners, if you're looking for a therapist, don't forget you're the, what is the word, when you are the consumer. So you are offering money for a service. You don't have to stay with someone that's not a good fit.
Yes, that's very important.
Yeah, just give them a try because everybody has an off day. Give them a few sessions, but if it's still feeling off, get your rear end to the next one. I mean, just try somebody else until you get that fit and you feel felt by that person.
That's a good way of saying it.
Yeah. They need to be able to attune to you. They're not doing therapy to you. They're in it with you. They feel how you feel and they respond.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's safe and stable.
And it's worth doing. This is where, cognitive behavioral therapy has been well researched in terms of after 12 sessions, there's this amount of benefit. And so the insurance companies love it. Attachment therapy, it takes longer because we're repairing this internal model that we don't have internally. It's going to take more time, but if you lean into it, I mean, the growth that comes out of it and the experience of change in other relationships, like that's our goal, is to see people in thriving relationships, is so rewarding. So I would say, and again, it's not research does much because they're not going to do longitudinal studies on people with insecure attachment. It just takes too long and it's too complex. But you will know. I think you'll start to feel that sense of when you're getting the right validation and support with what you're working with, you're going to feel stronger inside. You're going to feel more confident. And then you're going to know, that it's translating by the way that you relate to other people and show up in the world.
Yeah. So, on that topic, do we have time? I just want to say, you also don't want a therapist that is going to agree with everything you say because they want to please you. That's a therapist that hasn't been doing it long enough. You want someone that will gently challenge you because they care about you, not because they want to make you wrong, but they will catch you in something or a pattern that is not good for you and question it with kindness. When you walk away thinking, ooh, I didn't know I was even doing that, or wow, I hadn't thought of it that way, don't get offended. Be grateful. Yeah. That you're in a warm, kind situation where someone can tell you, hey, that's not doing you too good. Right. That pattern that you do, that thing you say, or you let those certain people do that to you. What's that about? When was the first memory you had of this happening? It's like therapists are like they're like your secret superhero, I think. I like that. I know I'm a therapist, so that's kind of, funny for me to say that, but it is. It's like you have a buddy that cares. Well, I wanted to say this earlier. Like when your parents did what the best they could do, with what they had, and even the best parents, everybody gets the baton at the end. Yeah, and at 18 in our country, like here you go, and you get that baton, and you now are in charge of finishing the parenting job. I like that. And so, how do you want to take care of you? And who do you want on your team? Do you want a therapist that will come alongside and want the best for you and really attune to you and care about all the things that have hurt you? Yeah. And all the things that have made you thrilled in your life. Yeah. And they cheer for you and they send you a text like, you did it. I don't know why everybody's not in therapy. To tell the truth. Thankfully, we're moving more in that direction. Back in the day, right? Yes. Only the really severe people went to therapy, and I think we're moving towards people realizing healthy people go to therapy because we all need to grow. So, thank you so much for joining us, and you can find Lisa's website on the show notes, and she works both again with couples and individuals, and she does EMDR, which is amazing. So thank you, and hopefully this is helpful if you're looking for a therapist, if you're
just thinking about your attachment style and wanting to make change with that. We hope this was helpful for you, and we will see you next week on Catalyst for Healing. Bye.
Bye.